Welcome to the Taylor Made Tasty podcast. I'm Taylor, retired serial quitter turned goal boss coach, speaker, and consultant. I believe a beautiful life starts with a beautiful mindset. Join me as we amplify confidence, resilience, and actionable tools on the road to quit quitting on you and your vision. You are worthy of your goals, so let's go get there. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Taylor Made Tasty, the podcast. Today's episode features a guest by the name of Victoria Yates, and we will be talking all about what does it even mean to eat intuitively. As this has been a very popular concept in recent years, Victoria breaks down what it means, how it looks in your day-to-day life, and brings some additional knowledge and information surrounding intuitive eating. I myself know very little about it, and I am excited to learn alongside you. A little bit about our guest. Victoria is a food and body image coach for women, specializing in helping women to stop dieting and love their bodies through learning how to eat intuitively. With all the pressure to eat perfectly and have a perfect body, it's no wonder that you feel stressed about how you should eat. Victoria teaches how to have a healthy lifestyle built on science behind intuitive eating so that you never have to go on another diet ever again. Please help me in welcoming Victoria. Let's get into it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Can you believe it's time for the annual Vision Board Party? It's back, Saturday, December 3rd. This Vision Board Party offers an empowering and imaginative goal-setting session where participants will learn the fundamentals of creating a vision board, but more importantly, break down big goals into attainable milestones for the coming year. The first part of the workshop consists of guided meditation, reflection, and journaling designed to open up the mind before we jump into action. The second half is dedicated to building the vision, where participants will transfer their goals into milestones with deadlines and ultimately into a graphic representation of their big dreams. You can find more information at taylormadetasty.com/vision board. And for all my podcast listeners, use code PODCAST for 10% off any package. Let's go get there in 2023.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, Victoria. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Taylor. Thanks for having me.
Well, most, if not all, of my clients and listeners are on some sort of wellness journey. And I believe wellness journeys run much deeper than just like what we eat and what we drink, but it comes down to like the goal of how they want to feel. And it's really about freedom and sustainability, and they want to feel free from the hold that food has or had on them, and they want to create a sustainable lifestyle that feels positive and good. But a lot of us have been taught from the media, social media, that we can't trust ourselves around food. So the very idea of eating intuitively is scary and sort of this like foreign concept. But I also feel like it's been kind of a popular buzzword set of words these days. So I was curious if you could explain what it even means to eat intuitively.
Yeah, and you're so right. Like, it is very much like this buzz, like everybody's talking about intuitive eating. And I think because everybody's kind of onto the fact that diets don't work, they're not sustainable. Everybody has this story or history. Most people have the story or history of going on the diet, making all the changes, and then like once they finish the diet, or even before they finish the diet, they quote fail and go back to their ways, and they never actually make a change that actually lasts. Or maybe they notice some weight loss but then ended up gaining it all back within a period of time. So, and this is so common because diets work against our bodies. They don't work well with our bodies or with how we think, with our mindset, and just like our psychology. So intuitive eating really is, so to give kind of like the legit definition, it is a research-based approach to help you stop dieting and build trust with your body. And I'll even add on to there to get to a place where you can have what I call health without obsession. So like you are prioritizing your health. I always like to remind people that the end goal of intuitive eating is to get to a place where you have better health, because a lot of people, there's like this miscommunication, I think, a lot with intuitive eating, that it's just eat whatever you want and just like don't care. And that's not the purpose. The purpose is to heal your relationship with food, to heal your relationship with yourself and with your body, so that you get to the place where you genuinely can take care of yourself, but in a way that's really sustainable and from a place of kindness. Because I'm sure we all can see that diets, all of the messages that we get are very unkind in regard to our bodies. So that's a big part of what intuitive eating is about.
Yeah, I love that. I completely agree too, is that sometimes it comes across as though uh a free for all, right? Like intuitive eating where you have no rules, no barriers, no no things like that. So you explaining that it's research based, meaning that there are some rules and boundaries around it, just like any good thing, right? And so that we have to, I'm excited to kind of get into that. But I think in theory, eating intuitively sounds wonderful, and self-trust is something that I believe that we're all working towards in many aspects of our life, and something we truly want. So how would you describe the difference between like how we expect to feel in our lives if we're able to practice intuitive eating? Like, what are the major benefits?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest benefits, I guess, right off the bat is getting off of what I call the diet cycle. So, kind of what I was explaining there, where like you, a lot of times, for people, it starts off with, I want to make a change, I want to feel healthy. So, they do something, they want to feel good. And the solution is, for everyone, really, the solution we've been told to do is go on the diet. And then what happens is, because dieting, and we can talk about, even like what actually is happening in your body and your mind when you go on a diet. But basically, what happens is, physically, you have different things that happen when you go on a diet, because your body essentially is thinking, we are in a famine. We are starving. It's the primal response. Whenever food is off limits, and this can be from like actual restriction, or I think something some people don't quite realize is it's even like the mental restriction, like just like the fear and the guilt that people feel around food. It goes so much deeper. And what that does is it elicits in your body this response that says food is scarce and your body is always working to keep you safe, to keep you alive. And so some things happen. Number one, your hunger hormone ghrelin increases. And so this is why you might notice when you are on a diet, maybe you feel more hungry and you're like, why do I feel hungry all the time? One of the reasons is because your hunger hormone actually increases. The second is your metabolism decreases. So again, it's because your body is working to keep you safe. So your hunger hormone increases because essentially your body's like, we have to go find food because we don't have enough food here. And then energy is going to decrease. Your metabolism is going to decrease because it's thinking, okay, we have to conserve the energy we have. And then the third thing that's happening is you have increased fat storage when you go on a diet. Because again, your body's thinking food is scarce. Fat is really protective of us and our bodies. It's one of the most important things for just keeping us alive. And when we're on a diet, your body is kind of like in this fear of how long are we going to be starving, essentially. So it's going to start to hold on to fat because it's trying to protect you. So as you can probably already start to see, this is not very conducive for being able to stick to a diet or feel successful on a diet. It's like everything in your body is working against you. And then on top of this, mentally, psychologically, we experience what's called the forbidden fruit mentality. So this is basically the foods that are off limits, the foods that you're restricting, that you're not allowing yourself to have. You're going to want those foods even more. So this is why when you go on, I talk to a lot of people and I'm like, what happens when you go on a low carb or low sugar diet? What do you crave? You crave food, you crave sugar, you crave carbs. And then the second that you come off of that diet, you're like beelining for the carbs, the sugar, because of what's happening in your mind. Again, your body is like trying to protect you. So it's thinking, if we can kind of like think on the side of our bodies, it's thinking if we start thinking about the food that is scarce, then we're going to be more apt to go find that food. Does that make sense? So all of those things are happening. And as you can see, it's like very much setting you up for failure in a diet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the concept of the don't think about a pink elephant and then all you think about is the pink elephant, and that's really what happens when we go on to a diet program is we think about all the things that we can't have.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So then what happens, for a lot of people, you experience all of this, you might not even know, but then, you know, you end up at some point failing the diet or not being able to maintain, or the second you come off of that 30 days, you're like back to eating however you used to, or even with like more extreme like behaviors. But you're back to your old ways. And a lot of times there's this like, I see with people like this all or nothing mentality too, where it's like they have one screw up and then they just like think, okay, I'm a failure, throw in the towel, throw out all the things that I've been doing, and then they're back to their old ways until the next time that they think, I need to make a change. I need to, I don't feel good, like I need to do something, and then you're back to the diet again. So this is what I call the diet cycle. So and you're talking about like what is the biggest benefit of intuitive eating? Like why is this even important? A lot of like this is exhausting. First of all, being stuck on this cycle, very frustrating, and also it's very unhealthy. um, every time that you go on a diet and off of a diet, your body is still kind of like recovering from that period of like starvation or just like feeling like it's unsafe. And for a lot of people, what we actually see is something called weight cycling, where you lose the weight and then gain the weight back even more, lose the weight, gain back even more. So kind of this ripple effect where people are gaining even more weight with every diet they go on. So and that in and of itself is not healthy. So one of the biggest benefits of intuitive eating is the consistency that people can find with actually learning to listen to your body, not having these really extreme behaviors and working alongside your body to eat healthy. And that is what's going to set people up for long-term health versus this like quick diet kind of fix, which doesn't actually fix things. I think people don't realize how harmful dieting is and how harmful it is to have these kinds of restrictive behaviors. So intuitive eating, one of the best things is just getting away from that. But I think another benefit that I see people really longing for is people are tired of, women I talk to all the time are tired of just the counting, the weighing, the measuring, the food always being on their mind and constantly feeling like a failure. They're tired of that. And so they're ready to get to the place where they just feel peace around food. They feel a sense of calm around food and they can just eat normally. And so that's another big benefit of intuitive eating is food isn't such a huge like all consuming part of their life. They're able to eat healthy, but not in a way that is so consuming, so obsessive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like so much of what you said is relatable into what our bodies are going through and also what we're seeking. Like I had mentioned, the freedom, the sustainability, and like you're saying, not having to think about it obsessively. I think would be such a gift. So that's very intriguing. And I have to be honest that I have never really felt the desire to research or like truly educate myself on eating intuitively. But in preparation for this episode, I did read some like research journals and listen to some podcasts and came across a set of principles. And I don't know if this is like blanket across the board. Of everyone that eats intuitively or coaches or teaches about it. But one of the principles is about stopping the food fight, quote unquote food fight, right? And calling a truce on the guilt and the shame that we have surrounding some of our behaviors with food. So, can you offer some insight maybe around these principles, but like also actions that we can take to start to make peace with food?
Hmm. Yeah. So making peace with food is one of the just core principles of intuitive eating. And the reason is that for us to truly be able to listen to our bodies, like a lot of people think of intuitive eating and they're like, oh, yeah, eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. And that is part of it. Those are parts of, those are two of the principles. But it's so much deeper because so many people have been damaged by like, and I say damaged not like in a horrible negative connotation, but just like we have been so um uh dieting has just been so instilled in our minds. So a lot of us have very diety mindsets with food. And the one of the key mindsets that and beliefs that dieting teaches us is there are good foods and there are bad foods. And for a lot of people, especially like a lot of the women I work with are very perfectionist oriented, very like achiever type people, like high achievers. And so, you know, people like us, we take that good food, bad food, and we make it mean like we have to be all good. Like I can't eat a quote bad food or else I am bad. So we take it even further because of that perfection type mentality and behavior. It's like this thinking that if I eat the good food, I'm good. If I eat the bad food, I'm bad. But what we're trying to really instill in people with intuitive eating is there are no good foods, bad foods. And, I'm not saying that all foods are equal in their health benefit, but food is not a moral thing. Food is neutral, and you are not good or bad based on what you are eating. What this does is when we are labeling foods as good and bad, a lot of times what happens is kind of what I was talking about earlier with that forbidden fruit mentality. The bad foods are more appealing. And it's like we gravitate towards those foods even more because we like them, but then we feel bad about it. And a lot of times the behavior I see is you have one of those foods, like let's use the example of like chocolate because it's around Halloween when we're talking about this, and chocolate is everywhere. And so you love chocolate, but you feel bad, like it's a bad food in your mind, and you feel bad for eating it. So you have one, but then you think in your mind, like, well, I've already had one. I've already like screwed up. I'm already a failure. And so I'm just going to eat all of it. Right. So I see that all the time with people. Whereas if chocolate just wasn't a deal, if it was just neutral, you would be able to have a couple pieces, like a reasonable amount, and then move on. Another kind of thing that some people I've seen is like this, with the good food, bad food, is this thought of like, if I buy it, then I'm going to eat it all because I just want to get rid of it because it's bad, right? So you can kind of start to see, and maybe, just using some of those examples these are really common examples that I hear from people, but just how that good food, bad food mindset really impacts how we are with food. It's one of the biggest reasons why I see people actually overeating because again, when we are able to just see food as neutral, essentially we're like taking the power away from food and we're giving ourselves that power. We're empowering ourselves to be able to say like, I can have this food today or tomorrow or the next day. And it doesn't have to be this whole like, I had one piece of chocolate and now my whole day is ruined. And now I'm just going to eat the whole thing. So that is really what we're talking about when we're talking about making peace with food. We're starting to see, like working to see foods as just neutral, as not good or bad, that all foods can truly fit in a healthy diet. Like we are not, our bodies are not ruined by one piece of chocolate. And I think most people know that, but it's the fear of, well, if I eat one piece of chocolate, then I'm going to eat all the pieces of chocolate. But it's that mindset that actually gets you to overeating on those kinds of foods. So, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, we definitely talk about self-sabotage a lot and how, that one piece of chocolate is a flat tire, but then we decide to slash all the other tires because we feel whatever feelings we feel, guilt, shame around that one piece, right? So I think that's very relatable. So I'm actually curious. I feel like so many people are ingrained in this like diet culture as we've talked about, and with that comes this tracking, right? Tracking your food, tracking your water, tracking your, like, there are a plethora of apps and all the things that we could be utilizing to track every single thing about our life, right? There's habit trackers, there's sleep tracker, like all the things, right? So when we're talking about eating intuitively, does that mean that tracking is like eliminated from the equation when it comes to tracking your food?
Yeah. So, my recommendation is to not track, because the way I like to describe it, and I have a little analogy that I think can help with this too, is we have external influences that are impacting the choices that you make and how you eat. And those are very, like, dieting uses external influences. So we think about trackers, they're external, right? They're things outside of our bodies that are influencing how we eat. The scale, how many times do you hop on the scale, and whatever the number is determines how you're going to eat that day, whether you're going to restrict or whether you're going to be like, oh, I actually, I lost weight, so I can like eat whatever. Um, so trackers, the scale, social media influencers, like what other people on social media are saying you should eat or what they eat, that's an influence. Um, uh, just like weighing and measuring. I don't think, I think that's kind of a thing that people of the past did. I think we're more like calorie counting, macro counting right now, but some people are still like weighing and measuring and portioning, right? Um, so all of those are external. They're very diety. So the versus like our internal cues are hunger, your hunger cues, your fullness cues, your satisfaction, like what is satisfying to you, and then just generally how you physically feel. So what really happens is, if you were to imagine, or if I were to use an analogy, if you were to imagine that you were at a rock concert, so you're at a rock concert with your best friend and she's right next to you, and she turns around to you and starts talking to you. And even though she's literally right next to you, you can't hear a word that she's saying because the music is so loud. So what do you have to do to be able to hear her? You have to step outside. And then like once the music is a little bit softer, like you're away from it, then you're actually able to hear her. So this, in the same way, we have all of these external influences. Again, calorie counters, trackers, movement trackers, the scale, Instagram or social media. And when we are so bombarded by all of that, it's really hard to listen to our inner voice, because you're going to have all this extra noise that's saying, well, no, you have to eat this way, or you have to eat this amount. And you just ate. Why are you hungry again? Even though you actually physically feel hungry. So, my recommendation, at the very least, in the beginning, is to eliminate as much of that external noise, the external influences, as possible. Now, we live in a very diet focused world, so it's not necessarily possible to totally eliminate all of it. Like, you're still going to run across social media accounts that are going to pop up, or ads or whatever. But as much as you can eliminate those kinds of external influences, you're going to start to be able to listen to the internal. You're going to start to be able to hear yourself. And that's how you build trust with yourself, right? Even easier. So that's my recommendation. And actually, I find that people once they let go of the trackers, they don't feel the need to go back because it's tiresome, it's time consuming, and it's really not necessary. Our bodies give us everything that we need to be able to eat healthy just from listening to ourselves.
Yeah. That I love that analogy. That is so true, and it's applicable to many different things in life that are noisy and in your face and all of those things. So to be able to soften that noise, but that is explained very well, especially when talking about all of these outside influences. And I think with a greater understanding of this concept, right, and the purpose and the benefits of eating intuitively, where a diet might say, this is the answer to your problems, eating intuitively would say, you have all the answers inside of you already, like you just mentioned. So with that, I would love if you could share, you have a 5-step approach to this on how to eat intuitively. And I would love for you to share what those 5 steps are, especially for somebody that's like really new to this and the idea of self-trust is really scary.
Yeah. So these 5 steps are adapted from the original 10 principles of intuitive eating that you mentioned already. And just kind of like put together based on what my own work and my own work with clients. So the first one is undieting your mindset, which is kind of like what we've been talking about, like what we just talked about with quieting the noise. Um, you know, going into intuitive eating, if you have had years and years of dieting, you have a lot of beliefs and thoughts, and your mindset is very much still thinking like a diet. And what we want to do is clear out some of those old beliefs. I kind of use to share another analogy because I just love analogies, but it's like renovating a house. Like you go in and the house served you in the past, and now we want to do a little freshen up. And so we're going to get the hammer out and like knock down the walls that we don't like anymore because we want an open concept, and we're going to fix it up and like clear things out. That's what we want to do with your mindset in the beginning, is to figure out like what are the thoughts that I have right now? What are the beliefs I have right now that are still very diety? And let's start to shift to some more supportive beliefs that are going to help us eat more intuitively. Like, for an example, the good food, bad food mindset. It's very much a diety mindset. We want to shift that to something like all foods can fit in a healthy diet, or I am not bad for eating something that is unhealthy, or those are just a couple examples. So that's number one, is undieting your mindset. Number two is attuned eating. So this is kind of the practical, what you think about with intuitive eating is eating when you're hungry, stopping when you're full. And then I add on there satisfaction, thinking about satisfaction, because satisfaction is lost for so many people with dieting, because dieting is all about the numbers and losing weight really quick, and not necessarily focusing on foods that taste good and that are satisfying and eating in a satisfying way. But we know, and actually research backs this up, that when you are satisfied, meaning when you eat foods that you enjoy, that taste good, that you're actually craving, and an amount that leaves you feeling satisfied and full, that you're actually able to push away from the table and not think about food as often until your next meal. Versus, like, if you think about, like, to give an example, if you're craving a hamburger and you're out at a restaurant and you order a salad because you quote should, then you get home and you're probably still not satisfying because what you really wanted was a hamburger. So then you start raiding your pantry just to try to get that satisfaction. Versus if you had just eaten the hamburger, you would have left and probably gone home and not eaten anymore, right? So satisfaction is so key. It's like the cherry on top of everything with honoring your hunger, stopping when you're full. But we can't forget about that satisfaction piece. So yeah, that's what attuned eating is. It's eating when you're hungry, stopping when you're full, and when you're actually full, not just no longer hungry, which is a mistake I see a lot of people make, is they eat until they're just no longer hungry anymore, but they're not actually full, because I think so many people are afraid of fullness and that meaning that they're going to gain weight. So they actually undereat, which can set people up for actually overeating. So being really aware of like, am I eating when I'm hungry and honoring that, and then stopping when I'm actually full, not just no longer hungry, and then eating foods that are satisfying. Number three is respecting your body. This is a key part of intuitive eating because what I like to say is, we take care of the things we care about. So a lot of the messaging that we've gotten around dieting is in like kind of a dramatic way, but this, like, I see this so often, is like almost hate your body enough to make a change. And that just doesn't work. We are not, as humans, motivated to make a change out of hate or shame. So that's where you might find yourself making those initial changes, but a lot of times that leads to really dramatic changes, like going to the gym every single day or doing a really restrictive diet and not actually being able to stick with it, versus if you were to approach your health from this place of, I respect my body, like, just imagine how that would be different. You would probably eat healthier, but in a way that's really sustainable. You would exercise and move your body, but not like totally neglect how you're feeling and burn yourself out. So respecting your body and just having a kindness and a love, developing a love for your body. And it doesn't mean that you have to like every part of yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to love every part of your body, but it does mean this is my body and I am choosing to respect her and I am choosing to be kind to her. So that's really important. And then number four is health without obsession. So this is the part where, we've done all of that inner work on your mindset and on listening to your body. And now we're at the place where, yes, health is important. So we take what you already know about nutrition, what you already know about what makes you a healthier person, which most of my clients, and I would probably guess most of your audience, already knows what to do to be healthy, like what the actions are. But it's taking that knowledge and applying all of the other things that we've just kind of talked about, all of the other aspects of intuitive eating, so that it's not this obsession, it's not this thing that controls you. And the biggest differentiator, I would say, between health without obsession and dieting is really your mindset, and it's approaching health from this place of empowerment versus fear. Dieting is approaching health very much from this place of fear. I'm afraid of gaining weight. I'm afraid of being unhealthy, versus I'm empowered in this decision to choose this food over the other. So that is health without obsession. The last one is just building up trust with yourself. So we've kind of gone through these four. And when I think about like the overarching thing that intuitive eating is really helping women do is building trust with themselves in the area of food, but also as a whole in general. Like, I work with my clients on food, but we also talk about all the other areas because it's all interconnected, because your life is your health and your health is your life. And this is really, it's not about the food. It's about this inner lack of trust with ourselves. So what this looks like is just, as you've kind of gone through all of this, building trust with yourself is really about building up new evidence that you are someone who can trust yourself. So looking for those little, ways that you can trust your body, that you can trust yourself around food, and really just continuing to look for that. That is really, what it is about. So those are kind of my 5 steps. Those are the things that I walk my clients through. I know that was a lot. I've been talking for a while, but that is like basically my process there.
Oh, it was a lot in a good way. And so much of it, I think, is what we desire and want out of life. And I think that, especially with your last point there, like that self trust is scary to think, especially somebody. I mean, some of my clients have been doing this for 30 or 40 years. Like they have been thinking about this, they have been tracking in some capacity for years and years and years. And like myself, like probably over half of my life, you know, and it's like the concept, the idea that you could literally stop doing that tomorrow and implement more of this is scary, but also I think it's enticing too, right? Because we're looking for freedom and sustainability, and that has to come with self-acceptance and self-trust and all of those things. And
Yeah.
I think too, we always stem from a place of like the food and the movement and all of those things, when it's really about like what's happening between our ears is really where we need to start. And yes, we're talking about self-trust from a health and wellness perspective, but like imagine self-trust in every aspect of your life, with your finances, with your career, with starting a business, with like taking risks. Like that would really speak to being the best version of you. It starts with that self-acceptance and that self-trust. And I think that that is all we could ever want, right?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the most fun things that I don't know, one of my favorite parts of working with my clients is just seeing them like make these shifts and changes in their relationship with food and with their health, but then seeing that the same shifts start to happen in other parts of their life. Because as I was kind of saying there a minute ago, it's never actually about the food, which I think some people are really surprised at. Like they think, all right, we're going to go in and like we're going to track and we're going to count. You're going to ask me what I'm eating. No, this is about empowering you to be the expert on your own body, because you are. Like you're the only one living in your body. You're the only one who knows how you physically feel. No one else can know that. And it's about empowering you to take on that empowerment, or that role as the expert. And um, and you know, when you start to do that in one area, it's so cool how it starts to trickle into the other areas. Like you were saying, like suddenly someone's like, "Oh, I'm starting to." Oh, what I was gonna say is it's never about the food. For a lot of my clients, it's about perfection or letting go of control and people pleasing and comparison. And so once you start to work on that in the area of food, then you start to see, oh, this is popping up in this area now. Oh, we got to do some work here, which is so fun. Um, so I love that, and I love that you alluded at that also, that you see with your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I know this would be scary for some, right? People, because this is allowing permission that they have been so used to restricting in their lives. And because the goal of this episode is to help listeners understand, which you have done a fantastic job of taking this concept and making it applicable. But to help listeners understand what it means to trust themselves and to eat more intuitively, if you were to recommend just like one simple action today towards that goal, yes, we have the 5-step plan and we touched on one of the principles. But what would be like one simple thing today that you could say would be like, take this, implement this into your life, and this would help you on that path of eating intuitively?
Ooh, I love this question because so many things are coming up to my mind. But I think the biggest thing is to practice curiosity with yourself. Because a lot of times I see women holding themselves back. And like you were talking about before, self sabotaging because they maybe overeat and then they go straight to judgment. And that just keeps us stuck. Like if we just stay in the judgment cycle, then you're never going to learn. You're never going to get out of that struggle. But if you can literally just start to get curious with yourself and not jump to judgment, um, that can just open up so much room to learn and to start to build up what we've been talking about, this trust with yourself. So, what that can look like is just asking yourself questions. Like with the overeating example, asking yourself, I wonder why I overate. And doing that from a place of no judgment, which I know can be hard, especially if you're just used to the judgment. If you can kind of put the judgment aside for a second and ask yourself, I wonder why I overate. Then maybe you discover, oh, I actually didn't eat much earlier in the day, or I skipped breakfast. Like that makes sense that I overate, or I was really distracted and like life's been crazy, or maybe I have been really neglecting feeling my emotions and I really feel like I was turning to food there to suppress my or to not feel my emotions. So that's probably why I overate. When you do that, you get to learn and you get to say, okay, next time, what am I going to do when I get into this situation? When I am really stressed out at work and I come home and I want to just like go and not feel my feelings and just eat ice cream instead, how can I do things differently? Um, so that's what I would say. Just like getting curious with yourself, asking questions. Another question that I love to encourage people to ask is just, what do I need right now? Because I think so often we're just going through life so busy and we're taking care of other people and thinking about all the things on our schedule that we neglect to tap in with ourselves and building this muscle of just getting to, I like to think of it like getting to know yourself again is really like part of that is just asking yourself questions, getting curious, getting to know your needs and how you're feeling. I think that can be a really great place to start for people.
Absolutely agree. I think too, because when you are starting any sort of program, right? You're going on a diet, you're starting a program, you're spending your time learning about like the tools and the program and like how they track and whatever they use, right? For that, where you're saying like spend your time learning about you, like how you respond to food or how you feel hungry or how you feel full. So where the focus is, really shifts off of us in those scenarios, you're kind of like shifting that back to you and getting to know your relationship with food, not what somebody else has dictated your relationship with food is.
Yes. Yep. Again, it goes back to just like taking ownership of like your own body and that you are the expert. And you have a ability there to that no one else really can have to know how you're feeling and to know what you need.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Well, thank you for this. I would love for you to share about your business and how listeners can connect with you.
Yeah, so you can come find me. My website is victoria-yates.com. So you can come find out about my work and how I work with clients. I offer a free consult if anyone is like, if this has been resonating and you feel like you need help. You can find that at my website. I am also on Instagram at um, my handle is non-diet_RN. And then I actually also have a podcast called the Redefining Health Podcast, so you can come listen there.
Fantastic. Well, I can say on behalf of all of us that we are so thankful for your expertise today and for you taking this really big, ominous concept and breaking it down, so that people can decide if this is something that they would be interested in and learn about themselves a little bit more when it comes to what we're eating and how we're fueling our bodies and nourishing ourselves, and how deeply that runs into the wellness roots that affect so many other aspects of our lives. So I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Taylor, for having me.
All right, y'all, it is time for the quote of the episode. This quote is from Scotty Waves. Think for yourself, trust your own intuition. Another's mind isn't walking your journey. You are. Take that into your week, your month, and maybe even your year, and whether or not you decide to do some more research and try some of the principles of intuitive eating, I empower you to trust your own tuition as this journey is your own. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for being in my community. I'm so glad you showed up today, and let's go get there. Look at you, crushing it. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Tailor Made Tasty podcast. My hope is you always leave with a takeaway to implement in your own goal-crushing journey. I would love if you could take a moment to leave a review. And if you're looking for a community of goal boss badasses just like you, be sure to check out tailormadetasty.com/membership.